Get ready to uncover secrets that have been buried for generations. When Lily stumbled upon an old doll in her grandmother's attic, she had no idea she was about to dive into a dark mystery that would test her courage and sanity. Family secrets, ancient rituals, and an eerie presence that seems determined not to let her go. What is this doll really hiding? Stay with us until the end, and join Lily as she uncovers the chilling truth behind this captivating mystery.
Behind the doors.
Lily arrived at her grandmother's house on a hot summer afternoon. The sun was shining brightly, but an oppressive silence hung over the place. The old imposing house seemed to have a life of its own, with dusty windows and creaking doors swaying gently with the wind. The young woman, eager to explore, felt a mix of excitement and a hint of apprehension as she stepped into the place her grandmother called home. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and distant memories, while the creaking floorboards under her feet echoed like whispers of untold stories. "Hi, Grandma, I'm here," Lily called out, but her voice seemed to get lost in the vastness of the empty rooms. Her grandmother, a woman with gray hair and piercing eyes, appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing a welcoming smile but with a gaze that carried the weight of memories. "Oh, my dear, I'm so glad you're here. Make yourself at home," her grandmother replied as she prepared a cake that filled the air with a sweet vanilla aroma, though something in her glance toward the house left Lily intrigued. After a quick snack, Lily's curiosity drove her to explore every corner of the house. The sunlight filtered through dusty windows, revealing cobwebs that danced slowly. As she walked down the hallway, she noticed a dusty staircase leading up to the attic. An uncontrollable urge made her climb the steps, each one echoing like a call to the unknown. The air upstairs was thick and heavy with moisture, and the smell of mold was almost palpable. At the top, Lily was faced with an old wooden door, adorned with rusty hardware. With some effort, she pushed it open, and the creaking door sounded like a warning. The attic was filled with dusty boxes, old furniture, and forgotten objects. But something caught her attention. In an old chair at the back sat a porcelain doll. The doll, with its tangled blonde hair and a faded lace dress, had an enigmatic gaze that seemed to follow her. Lily approached, feeling a mix of fascination and unease. "Wow, you're strange," she murmured, admiring the detailed face of the doll, which displayed a subtle, almost ironic smile. "Why are you here all alone?" Lily asked, as if the doll could answer. The only response was the silence of the attic, pulsing with a strange energy. The young woman reached out hesitantly, but couldn't resist the temptation to touch the doll. As her fingers brushed the cold porcelain surface, a shiver ran down her spine. Lily stepped back, her heart racing. "What's wrong with you?" she questioned, sensing there was more to the doll than it appeared. On impulse, she decided to take it with her. "You're coming with me, aren't you?" she whispered, picking up the doll and carrying it in her arms. As she descended the stairs, the house seemed to murmur around her, as if it were alive and aware of Lily's presence and the doll she had chosen. Upon reaching the ground floor, her grandmother awaited her in the living room, with a look that mixed concern and curiosity. "Lily, what did you bring there?" her grandmother asked, with a cautious tone that made the young woman hesitate for a moment. "It's just a doll, Grandma. She's very beautiful," Lily replied, trying to hide her anxiety. Her grandmother frowned, her gaze quickly passing over the doll before returning to her granddaughter. "Be careful with what you bring into the house, dear. Sometimes old objects carry more than just memories," she said, her voice laden with a meaning that Lily didn't yet understand. With the doll in her room, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. The attic called to her, and the doll seemed to have a life of its own, as if it were waiting for her. And so, Lily's curiosity began to intertwine with a mystery that would lead her to uncover secrets long buried in the shadows of her family. Lily was sitting on her bed, the soft evening light filtering through the lace curtains. The porcelain doll rested on an old chair, its enigmatic gaze fixed on the young woman, as if it were waiting for something. Lily's heart raced as she replayed the earlier scene in her mind, when the doll seemed to have moved, even if just for a brief moment. The idea intrigued and terrified her at the same time. It can't be true, she murmured to herself, shaking her head in disbelief. But the image of the doll, with its yellowed lace dress and dark hair, wouldn't leave her mind. What was it really hiding? With a deep sigh, Lily decided she needed to distract herself. She stood up and walked to the window, watching the trees swaying gently in the wind, their leaves whispering secrets she couldn't understand. As night fell, a deep silence enveloped the house, interrupted only by the creaking of the old wood. Lily lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. Instead, a distant whisper began to fill the air. She craned her neck, trying to listen more closely. Children's laughter echoed through the house, as if a child were playing downstairs. The sound intrigued her, but also made her uneasy. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. The silence that followed was more intense than before. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. It was just her imagination, she thought. Yet the feeling that something was wrong persisted, like a shadow moving ahead of her. The next morning, determined to understand what was happening, Lily went down to the kitchen, where her grandmother was preparing breakfast. The smell of pancakes hung in the air, but the young woman couldn't focus on the food. She sat down at the table, the doll still on her mind. "Grandma," Lily began hesitantly, "I found a doll in the attic." Her grandmother stopped abruptly, the spoon she was using to stir the pancake batter clattering onto the table. She turned, her gaze filled with concern. "A doll? In the attic?" she asked, the worry evident in her voice. "What did you do with it?" "I brought it to my room," Lily replied, trying to sound nonchalant, but her voice betrayed her nervousness. But something strange happened. It seemed to move on its own. Her grandmother frowned, her dark eyes now fixed on Lily with an intensity the young woman had never seen before. "Lily, there are things we shouldn't play with. Objects from the past can carry stories we'd rather forget." "But why? It's just a doll," Lily insisted, frustration building. "I just want to understand." "Some things are better left in the shadows, my dear," her grandmother replied with a heavy sigh. "That doll isn't just a toy. It belongs to a part of our family that's shrouded in secrets and regrets. Stay away from it." Lily felt a chill run down her spine. Her grandmother's words weighed on her like a dark cloud. "But I just want to know more about our family, Grandma. What happened? Who was the girl who had this doll?" Her grandmother hesitated, the expression on her face now a mix of sadness and fear. "Maybe it's better not to meddle in things we don't understand. The past can be far more terrifying than we can imagine." Lily nodded, but inside a flame of curiosity burned brightly. The doll called to her, and she knew she couldn't ignore its call. That summer promised to be much more than just a simple visit to her grandmother's house. It was the beginning of a journey that would lead her to uncover hidden truths and face the ghosts of her family. And with the doll as her guide, what else could happen? Lily had always been fascinated by old stories and unsolved mysteries. Now, as the sun set and cast long, dancing shadows on the walls of her grandmother's house, she felt irresistibly drawn to the porcelain doll she had found in the attic. The doll's enigmatic gaze seemed to penetrate her soul, as if it were waiting to tell a story that had long been hidden. That night, as she settled into bed, the events of the day still echoed in her mind. The whisper of the winds outside mingled with the memory of the giggle she thought she had heard in the dark. Feeling restless, Lily decided she needed to know more about the doll. Curiosity consumed her, and without thinking twice, she got up and walked over to the desk where she had left her grandmother's diary, filled with notes about the family's history. "What do you know about her, Grandma?" she whispered to herself as she opened the diary. The pages were yellowed and smelled of mold, but the words were still legible. Lily began to flip through, her fingers gliding softly over the letters, until she found a passage that mentioned a girl named Clara, who had disappeared decades ago. Clara. Clara. She repeated aloud, as if the name could summon the girl's essence. The passage spoke of a doll that belonged to Clara, a doll that had been handmade by her great-grandmother. She loved it as if it were her best friend, Lily read, her eyes widening with each line. But as she continued, the joy of discovery turned to apprehension. The text indicated that Clara had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and the doll was found abandoned in the attic of the house. Why doesn't anyone talk about this? She thought uneasily. The mystery surrounded her, and the connection between the doll and Clara seemed stronger with every second. A strange sensation enveloped her, as if the doll itself were calling out to her, inviting her to dive into a world she could barely imagine. That night, as sleep eluded her, Lily had a vivid dream. She found herself in a dark garden where the flowers were a deep red and the sky was constantly overcast. In the center of the garden, a girl in a white dress watched her, her eyes shining like stars. It was Clara. "Come play with me, Lily," the girl exclaimed, her lips curling into a smile. "Here, there's no sadness. We can be happy forever." Lily hesitated. "But you're trapped here. What happened to you?" Clara's expression grew somber, and the flowers around them began to wilt. "I just wanted you to help me escape. The doll knows. You need to find out." When Lily awoke, her heart was pounding. She knew she needed to return to the attic. The idea that the doll might be connected to Clara intrigued her, but also terrified her. The attic, with its shadows and secrets, was waiting for her. With determination, she climbed the dusty stairs again, the flashlight flickering in the darkness. The attic felt colder than before, and the air was thick with an uneasy expectation. In the center of the room, the doll waited for her, still in its chair, as if it had spent the entire night watching her. "Lily, you need to know the truth," the doll seemed to whisper, and for a moment she almost believed the words echoed in her mind. Carefully, Lily approached and noticed an old box, covered in dust, perched on a high shelf. With difficulty, she pulled it down. "Let's see what you're hiding," she murmured, opening the lid with a creak. Inside, she found yellowed letters, carefully folded. As she picked up the first one, her heart raced. The letters were elegant, but the message seemed laden with sorrow. Each word told a story of love and loss, revealing secrets that her family had kept for generations. Why does everyone hide this? Lily asked herself, feeling the need to discover more. The mystery of the doll and the missing girl was a call she couldn't ignore. She was about to unravel a truth that would change everything. Lily sat on the bed, the yellowed letter in her hands, her heart pounding with the revelation she had just read. The words danced in her mind, echoing the story of her great-grandmother and the rituals that involved the doll. What once seemed like just an old decoration now transformed into a symbol of deep, dark mysteries. "Immortality," she murmured, recalling the doll's enigmatic gaze. What else could be hidden in that dusty attic? She stood up, determined to confront the truth. The house was strangely silent, but as she walked down the hallway, a sense of unease enveloped her. The lights began to flicker, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Lily stopped, breathing deeply, trying to convince herself that it was just the effects of the house's old electrical system. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. Her grandmother's bedroom door was ajar, and Lily hesitated before pushing it open. Her grandmother was sitting in the rocking chair, her gaze distant, as if lost in old thoughts. "Grandma?" Lily called, her voice barely a whisper. The woman turned slowly, her deep blue eyes full of worry. "Lily, dear, you shouldn't be here." Her voice trembled slightly, and Lily realized her grandmother knew more than she was willing to reveal. "I found the letter. About the doll. About the rituals," Lily said, her tone defiant. "What do you know about this?" Her grandmother sighed, a pained expression crossing her face. "The doll. It carries the story of our family, a story that should have remained buried. But why didn't you tell me? What happened to my great-grandmother? And why was the doll involved in immortality rituals?" Lily's voice rose a little, her frustration showing. "Because not everything should be revealed, Lily," her grandmother replied, her voice a mix of sadness and determination. "The doll was a gift, but also a curse. My grandmother believed she could preserve her life and made a pact that extended through generations. Each woman in our family has paid a price for it. A price? What do you mean by that? Lily asked, confused. The rituals made her dependent on the doll. She believed that if she took care of the doll would take care of her. But this comes at a cost. Each generation, the doll demanded something in return. And you, dear, might be next. Her grandmother looked deeply into her eyes, as if trying to convey the full weight of the story. The revelation left her paralyzed. But I don't want this. I don't want to be part of this. Tears began to slip down Lily's face. I need to get away from it. But as Lily turned to leave, the lights began to flicker more intensely, and a biting cold swept through the hallway. Object after object began to move, as if an invisible force were manipulating everything around them. Lily felt panic rising, her heart beating wildly. Grandma, what's happening? It's the doll. It doesn't want you to leave, her grandmother shouted, quickly rising from the rocking chair. You need to understand, Lily. The doll is not just an object. It's an entity that feeds on our pain and suffering. But how do we stop it? Lily's voice was filled with despair. We need to face it together. We can't let fear control us. The doll needs to understand that we're no longer willing to uphold the pact. Her grandmother spoke with firmness, but the shadow of uncertainty in her gaze did not escape Lily's notice. But before they could act, the doll, which had remained silent until then, seemed to come to life. The chair it was sitting on began to creak, and the doll slowly turned towards Lily, a macabre smile forming on its porcelain face. You cannot escape me, whispered a soft but malicious voice, resonating in Lily's mind. The environment around them seemed to contort, and the young woman felt a wave of fear wash over her. It was as if the doll was feeding on the terror growing in her heart. No, 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 Lily screamed, backing away. I won't let you control me. You belong to me, the doll insisted, its voice echoing from all corners of the house. Her grandmother took Lily's hand, a gesture of support, but also a warning. We need to act, and quickly. Whatever is trapped in that doll wants to divide us. We can't let that happen. Lily took a deep breath, feeling determination grow within her. Let's end this once and for all. The storm raged outside, lightning cutting across the sky and thunder echoing as if the very heavens were in fury. Inside the old house, the atmosphere was equally tense. Lily and her grandmother, Clara, stood in the living room, each with an expression of determination and fear. The porcelain doll, now placed on a low table, seemed to pulsate with its own energy, as if it were alive. Clara took Lily's hand, squeezing it tightly. We need to act now before it's too late, she said, her voice trembling but firm. The doll is not just an object. It has a force we can't fully comprehend. Lily, her heart racing, looked at the doll. The creature's gaze seemed more intense, almost defiant. What do you suggest, Grandma? We can't just throw it away. The last time I tried to get rid of it, strange things started happening. Clara closed her eyes for a moment, as if seeking an answer in her memories. Your great-grandmother used the doll in rituals. She believed she could imprison something within it, something she didn't understand. Now, that force has manifested. We need to release it before the storm amplifies it. The house groaned and creaked, as if it were alive and under pressure. A stronger thunderclap made Lily jump, and the doll swayed slightly on the table. Clara pulled out an old box from under the sofa and began to take out objects: candles, a small chalice, and a worn book. These items are old, but they may help us, she explained. We need to create a protective circle. As Clara arranged the items, Lily felt a coldness sweep through her body. Grandma, do you think the doll can attack us? What does it really want? It doesn't want to attack us, Lily. It wants to be freed. Can you feel it? The pain and despair? The girl who disappeared? She's trapped. The doll is the link between us and her. With a swift movement, Clara lit the candles, creating a glowing circle around the improvised altar. Now we need to summon the energy that binds the girl's soul. Are you ready? Lily nodded, her voice almost a whisper. I am. Clara began to recite words in an ancient language, her hands moving delicately as if dancing a ritual. The air seemed to vibrate, and the doll began to tremble. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine. "Grandma, look." The doll began to change. The white porcelain darkened, and the painted smile on its face turned into an expression of pain. Clara continued to recite the words, but now her voice was louder, more urgent. "We call upon you, girl. Set yourself free." A shadow began to form next to the doll, a blurred figure writhing as if struggling to break free from an invisible weight. "Lily," the voice echoed through the room, a deep lament that made the young woman's heart race. "Help me. I just want to play." "Who are you?" Lily shouted, her fear transforming into a mix of compassion and courage. "Are you the girl who disappeared?" The shadow drew closer, revealing the silhouette of a girl with tangled hair and eyes full of sadness. "Yes, I can't leave. The doll keeps me here." "We need to help you," Lily exclaimed while Clara continued her invocation. "Grandma, what do we do now?" "Keep talking to her, Lily. Tell her we're here to free her," Clara ordered, not taking her eyes off the doll. "We're going to help you get out, I promise," Lily said, her voice firm despite the fear consuming her. "You don't have to stay trapped anymore." The girl's figure hesitated, as if caught in an internal struggle. "But if I leave, what will become of the doll? It's all I have." Clara, sensing the hesitation, raised her voice. "The doll is just an object. Your freedom is worth more than anything. You deserve to live." With these words, the doll began to vibrate violently, and the surroundings seemed to collapse under the pressure. "Help me! I just want to be free!" The shadow of the girl twisted, and Lily felt that the moment of truth was approaching. "We're here with you. We'll help you find peace," Lily affirmed, holding her grandmother's hand, united in a single purpose. The storm outside was now nothing compared to the storm unfolding inside the house. The storm raged outside, and the wind howled like a lost lament. Lily was alone in her room, her heart pounding as she stared at the porcelain doll, which now seemed more like a threatening presence than a mere object. In the back of her mind, the voice of the missing girl echoed, and the idea that the doll was a manifestation of something much deeper tormented her. She took a deep breath, trying to muster the courage to face the truth. "I can't live with this anymore," Lily murmured to herself, her voice almost swallowed by the sound of the storm. With determination, she stood up and walked toward the attic, where the doll awaited her, sitting in its old chair with that empty gaze that now seemed to have a life of its own. Each step she took became heavier, as if the house itself was trying to dissuade her, but she knew she had to face it. When she reached the attic, the air was thick with an inexplicable coldness. The doll was exactly where she had left it, but now its gaze seemed more intense. Lily approached, ignoring the tremor in her hands. "I know you have something to tell me," she declared, her voice firm despite the fear. "You're not just a doll. You're a part of our story, aren't you?" A deep silence filled the room, and suddenly the doll began to move. With a gentle motion, it turned its head, and the gaze that had once been merely enigmatic now seemed full of pain and despair. "Release me," the doll whispered, its voice soft and melancholic like the echo of a lost memory. "I'm trapped in this body, in this cycle of pain." Lily felt a chill down her spine. "Who are you?" she asked, curiosity overcoming fear. The doll tilted its head, and in an instant, the image of her young grandmother appeared in Lily's mind, like a distant shadow watching her. "I am Clara," the doll revealed, and the voice was now stronger. "I was promised a terrible fate, and the pain I carry has been passed down from generation to generation." "But why are you here?" Lily questioned, her heart racing. "What happened to you?" "My grandmother made a pact to protect me, thinking I would be safe. But the truth is, the protection became a prison. I am the manifestation of her pain and the pain of all the women in our lineage," Clara said, and each word seemed to carry an immense weight. "When you brought me to this place, you revived the cycle. Now we need to break it." Lily felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "How can I help? What should I do?" She looked deeply into the doll's eyes, now understanding that something much bigger was at stake. "Perform a ritual of release. Promise that you won't let our pain continue to haunt your life. Promise that you won't repeat the mistakes of the past, Clara pleaded, the doll's expression turning into a desperate plea. Only then can I find peace. With tears in her eyes, Lily nodded. I promise. I'll do this for you and for our family. She stepped away from the doll and began to search for items that could help her perform the ritual. She found old candles, a small chalice, and dried leaves that seemed to have been left behind long ago. By doing this, you'll be freeing yourself too, Clara whispered as Lily lit the candles and arranged the objects in a circle. The pain is not yours, and you don't have to carry it. When everything was ready, Lily closed her eyes and began to recite the words she had found in the letters. The atmosphere around her changed. A palpable energy seemed to flow, and the storm outside intensified, as if the universe was paying attention. I promise to break the cycle. I promise to set you free, Lily shouted, her voice echoing in the attic. As her words dissipated into the air, a bright light enveloped the doll, and the sound of the storm fell silent. Lily felt a wave of relief and love fill the room. The pain that had once surrounded her began to fade, and for a brief moment, she saw Clara smiling, free from her chains. Thank you, the doll whispered before fading into a soft light, leaving behind only the old chair and a faint scent of flowers. With a light heart, Lily realized that the cycle of suffering had been broken. She was no longer a prisoner of the past, but the guardian of a future unburdened.